This episode of the Party Loaded podcast is proudly sponsored by Audible.com. Check out their awesome catalogue of audiobooks with over 180,000 titles to choose from. And be sure to grab a free audiobook on us and support the show by visiting audibletrial.com/endgame.
Let's party.
Hello everybody, it is Wednesday the 10th of May and you are listening to Party Loaded. It is episode 76 and we're here to chat about some video games in a nice and calm and intimate setting. And to help us do that, I'm going to throw over to two close friends of mine right now. In the form of the ladies themselves, we have Mimo and Jam. Hello, how are you both doing?
Hello.
What is going on?
Good. I have a fun fact.
Fun fact?
Here you go for regular listeners of the show. Every time I say hello, I can't help but wave. So I wave at my laptop screen.
Oh, I'm waving back.
Yeah.
Hello.
Just realised I did that.
I used to have a similar thing, like when I met people in the passageways at my old workplace. Like I used to have this weird nervous twitch whenever I ran into anyone. You know, you have those awkward conversations where you run into someone in the hallway that you've already greeted once during the day, but you kind of have to greet them again because you're walking past them, and to not do so is rude. I always used to do like the thumbs up. And before long, and someone commented on it, I started realizing that I was looking exactly like original Fonzie. And I was like, yeah, I have to stop doing that.
Hey. Flattering yourself.
Yeah. Oh, it was bad.
Were you trying to channel Ollie at the beginning there? Is that what was happening? You kind of sounded like his little 20s radio man, whatever that voice he does.
No. If I wanted to do that, I would ham it up like even more, like ham
Add some
radio.
salt.
Yeah, exactly.
Salted ham.
I'm not going to talk about Ollie tonight because he's off enjoying himself at the frickin' theatre thing. What's he doing tonight? I've actually forgotten already.
Hans Zimmer.
Hans Zimmer, like listening to the Star Wars Symphony Orchestra or something. Is it? They're not just doing Star Wars tonight. They're doing something else, aren't they?
It's his collective works, I believe.
Sure. Well, I mean, he's got a fair few of those.
He's got a fair few.
Yeah.
He's got a couple. Yeah.
Just a tad.
May have heard of him.
Yeah.
If you haven't, then you may not partake in the same sorts of media that almost all of us do, which would be kind of weird if you're listening to this show. But anyway, speaking of such media, we are here to chat about video games. We should probably do that. And
Who's judging other people's geekiness?
no, people can be geeky for whatever the hell they want, but we have a particular task in terms of what to discuss, and we should probably get to it eventually. So, you know, let's do that. So games.
Talk about flowers.
We could talk about flowers. I mean, Mother's Day's coming up.
self-raising. It's my favorite.
Yes.
Oh, God. Speaking of self-raising, we resurrected a game this week that we hadn't played for a little while.
Oh my god, that was accidentally awesome.
That was amazing. Oh, gold medal, sir.
Well done. All right.
Wow.
We played some Heroes. Heroes of the Storm. How did
Heroes
we all
of the
find that?
Storm. Yeah, it was so much fun. It was, oh my gosh, getting in there for the first time, we jumped in with, again, listener of the show, Jason, who is rather good at MOBAs, let's just say.
Yeah, it was his first time playing Heroes, I think.
Sorry?
I think it was his first time playing HOTS.
No, not at all.
Oh, wasn't it? Oh, okay.
He played before, but we discovered very quickly that he plays on the Asia servers and we play on the Americas servers because all of my Blizzard accounts are on the Americas. And so he had to change his account to Americas, which means he had to just start from level 1 again with none of his stuff and all of that. So he started off with us, and learning just how to play the very basics of the game became a massive challenge.
Apologizing.
Yeah, we just didn't know what we were doing, and we came across like new modes. We forgot the buttons, and realized very quickly and remembered very quickly that the build of each of the characters is quite in depth, and to sort of optimize it, there's all sorts of builds and stuff. So it became the game of clicks and notes.
Actually, you posted one of those pages of notes that you were taking throughout the day, and I hadn't actually gotten on by this point because I was still out doing family stuff. And you had a freaking essay written down of all these characters and what you were doing. I was impressed.
I had my old build, so I have a page of notes from when we used to play, which was so long ago that a lot of them have changed. So I was reading up on Icy Veins, which is a forum quite common for the Heroes of the Storm builds and strats and all that kind of stuff. So I was reading up about some characters that I had and how to build them and the new characters like the Overwatch guys. So I picked out 6 that I quite liked that I could rotate between depending on what was needed. And yeah, I really, really, really enjoy Heroes of the Storm, but I know that it has a bit of an expiry time with some of the people that we play with, namely Jam.
Yes, but that being said, 2 hours after starting, Mimo and I were rocking Cho'Gall again and absolutely slaughtering people.
Jammy B.
It was glorious.
Yeah, so it mashes your 2 gamer tags together, and my gamer tag on Battle.net is Immy B, and Jam's is Jam. So it mashes those 2 things together, and when we play Cho'Gall, which is a 2-headed ogre, we became Jammy B, and we're pretty good at that. We took a while to get hang of, playing, but I managed to get MVP of the game as one of the heads, so I was pretty happy with that.
It's interesting how it still gives it to you as an individual, even though you sort of paired up as that character. I mean, yeah, I guess it still kind of makes sense in terms of the build because you pick a character, so...
Still does the damage of 2
Imogen's
characters.
doing her own damage, yeah.
True.
I was the legs and the rolling of the bomb.
Yeah, there's a mechanic where she drops the bomb and I'm responsible for detonating it. I also, the way that that character is built is that a lot of every time you level, it's a traditional MOBA mechanic that you get given sort of options at 1st, 4th, 7th, 10th, 13th, 16th, and 20th. Wow. And good memory. And you get to choose different ways that you can spec out your character. And a couple of characters are really multi-class almost. So you could take them like a damage way, you could take them a healing way, and whatever else. All of Jam's choices as Cho buff me, and all of my choices as Goal buff Jam. So you kind of have to work together in so many different ways to make that really successful. And we do quite well. We do not so bad with the communicating.
Yep. You got at least one play of the game that I saw, which was pretty cool. And speaking of which, I mean, how many aspects of Hero 2.0 feel like Overwatch now? I mean,
so many. Like the loot boxes and MVP, and you can vote on people at the end for who you thought did the best stuff. You get the card system.
It's all the good stuff.
All very similar. Yeah, it's all the good stuff. It's just, I mean, I'm biased because I love Blizzard. But we find things that work, and if it works for one, they try and apply it to the others, and they continually learn. And the way that the company intercommunicates between their different units is just astounding. Yeah. And the use of the Overwatch items to boost the Heroes of the Storm, it worked, ladies and gentlemen, because we had a ridiculous number of people wanting to play the game on the weekend. And I feel like it's having a little bit of a resurgence. I think we'll use it as a bit of our warm-up games, so quick rounds of Heroes of the Storm while we're waiting for other people to jump on.
We were cycling through groups in shifts. It was awesome. Yeah. I never fell out of love with that game. It was kind of just a distracted by other stuff kind of situation. And when we were playing it again on the weekend, it all came flooding back to me as to how much I loved it. And I had actually been missing it without even realizing. And yeah, it was super fun times. It's funny that you mentioned the mechanics that have been sort of taken from other Blizzard games and the ones that work have been sort of used universally through a bunch of their titles. There are a couple of things with the way that Heroes is doing the items, like the loot boxes now, that I wish they would adopt for Hearthstone in particular. There's one that I think is a great idea, which is, how now when you open up a loot box, you can actually, if you don't like the contents within, you can spend a little bit of gold and get a reroll. You know how that works? I think that would be something so perfect to put in Hearthstone for one reason in particular, because there is nothing worse in Hearthstone when you're sort of opening up a card pack and mousing over the card and you see that orange glow, meaning that you've got a legendary, and you're like, oh, awesome, I've got a legendary card. I usually only get one of these every 20 or 30 or so packs. And then you click it and flip it over and it's a legendary that you've already got. That is a real feel-bad moment. So if you had an option to re-roll and get a different legendary for a small cost, that would be so good. So
I tell you, it's even more frustrating if you haven't bought 20 to 30 packs and you only get one pack every 5 levels or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's even more frustrating.
Yeah,
you're playing free
Hearthstone.
Well
giving out a bunch of packs.
Deals
though.
are real.
Yeah. I mean, actually,
Yeah.
fun fact, Hearthstone next week, I love how I've just turned this into a Hearthstone chat. Hearthstone next week are actually going to be celebrating their 100th Tavern Brawl. So that means
Oh,
that...
it better be one I can actually play. I'm a little bit pissed at Hearthstone for the current Tavern Brawl.
Yeah.
I know everyone's super enjoying it, but it's not for me.
No.
When it comes up with a warning saying, this Tavern Brawl is for experienced players, I'm like, fuck you, Hearthstone.
Yeah, the heroic one. They've only done 3 of those so far, so don't worry. They're not very common. They do them every now and then. That's it. I do know the one coming up in the next week because it's the 100th Tavern Brawl. They are doing one which gives you pre-made decks, so you don't need to use your own collection, which will be great for players like yourself. Apparently, it is actually going to be a random brawl where there's actually 9 different Tavern Brawls that they've had over the past 100, and when you sort of click to play it, you'll actually be playing one of those 9 randomly. So you could be doing something totally wild and wacky, and every time that you play, so it's going to be a really good variety. But it got me thinking, like, given that there's been 100 of these things, with the exception of like the heroic brawls, like what you just mentioned, and a couple of specific ones that they've done for like Christmas period where they've given out a card back instead of a free pack of cards. Like theoretically, that means if you've been playing Tavern Brawl every week, you've now been able to get yourself upwards of 90 plus free packs. So that's pretty good. Not too bad that the game sort of gives that opportunity.
You have to play 100 Tavern Brawls though.
Yeah, but you only have to like win a single game to get that pack, so it's not terribly bad. Like on the scale of things, the amount of effort required for a lot of those.
How much are 90 packs to buy?
Oh, well, if we're talking Australian dollars, we're talking about, I think the 40 pack bundle is about 70 or 80 Australian dollars. So
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I was thinking if it was a small amount of money, then duh, like that's not a bonus. But yeah, that's quite a lot of money. That's so much money, Luke. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, they usually do like sort of better priced bundles around the time of new expansion launches and stuff. But yeah, we get a bit shafted on the price here in Australia, like every other video game. You know, it's nothing new for us.
Australia tags. Also, did you hear that they found 50 new spiders? Bonus.
What?
Australian scientists have discovered 50 new species of spiders.
Why are they looking for new spiders?
Yeah, haven't we got enough blood-sucking, like human-killing creatures already? Need to go looking for trouble.
Shout out to one of my favourite all-time podcasts called Probably Science, which is a group of American and British comedians who get their friends on. Sometimes they're scientists or got a science background, otherwise they don't, and they talk about relevant science issues. And one of them made the comment when they were talking about the spiders that, does that just mean that Australia was just super fucking lazy the first time they counted them, or what? How could there be 50 new types of spider?
We're developing resistances so that we can get past the ones we've found to the new ones without
Fun
dying.
news for those agoraphobics. No.
Yeah.
Yes, agoraphobics out there. Agoraphobics?
Arachnophobics?
Thank you.
Something like that.
Whoa, my brain
just
wanted
watching
to
you fish.
the fear of outside just was stuck in my head. One of them is the size of your face.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, wait, my face?
Like an alien's face
anyone.
hugger.
Damn.
Yeah, pretty much.
Holy crap.
Oh.
That is
So
frightening.
for our overseas visitors, welcome.
Have you
And
guys
if you
actually
visited us and
have you guys
left
actually ever
country
seen that
alive,
old movie
congratulations.
Arachnophobia? Have you ever seen that, the horror film?
I have seen that movie.
Yeah,
I have seen
if
that
you
movie.
are slightly scared of spiders or even unsettled by them, do not recommend that film. Holy crap. It's pretty
I
bad.
am not bothered by spiders, luckily.
You're not.
I don't
You've just got
like
the
them.
molluscophobia instead.
Oh, why did you...
Luke.
Imogen has some funny fears. But anyway, you've just given me a perfect segue because the whole Fear of Spiders thing actually dovetails neatly into the game that I've just been playing this week. So,
Yes.
you guys familiar with a little game by Playdead Studios called Limbo? You heard of that one?
I
Yes.
am. I really want to play it. So if you spoil it for me, I might have to come to your house and kill you. I've been avoiding Limbo spoilers forever.
If I spoil it, will you go to Luke's house and kill him?
No.
Damn
I
it.
will travel the extra distance to your house.
Do you want to take your headset off?
I feel
while we
like
talk about
there's
it for
maybe
2
one
minutes?
thing that I should be able to talk about because it's on all of the game cover art that has been used in
Oh,
promoting
yes.
it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
'cause there is a spider in the game, and it's a big fucking spider that you see on the cover artwork, which is about everything. So
Darn.
yeah.
I have seen the spider picture.
Yeah. So you're familiar with that. So just for anyone who's not familiar with Playdead, they, of course, were the company, the developers behind the game that released to much success last year called Inside, which is basically... And Limbo is a very, very similar game to Inside. They're a side-scrolling... very, very atmospheric, sort of limited palette, but very, very artsy kind of puzzle platformer with very, very smooth movement and not a whole bunch of in-your-face storytelling. It's kind of like the atmospheric feel and play of the setting is what kind of tells the tale as you go through. There's no dialogue or voiceover or anything like that. It's just, the very natural soundscape and that kind of thing. So, Jam, you played Inside when it came out, didn't you?
Yeah, and I played Limbo when it came out too.
Oh, so
they're both just gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's no hand holding, which I love.
Yeah.
It's okay, figure this out.
Yeah,
boom.
exactly.
There you go, there's you.
And it's very, very easy for them to do that too because the control scheme is very limited. Like literally, and this is pretty much the same from Inside as far as I can remember. Like you have a jump control and you have a grip control and it's just left and right movement apart from that. That's it. So I would highly recommend playing it with a gamepad if you can. Like I just hooked up my Xbox One controller to the PC and played it with that. It's a really comfortable sort of sit back kind of game because you don't need to fiddle with a whole bunch of different controls. But yeah, it just sort of figuring out how you do things as you go through it. Like when you start the game, there's no intro screen, there's no instructions, no tutorial. It literally just dumps you straight in and expects you to figure it out. So,
the beautiful thing about Limbo is that the foreground is black. It's entirely a silhouette game.
Yep.
So
100% black and white.
It's quite spooky and just amazing to navigate through with just these two pretty much two contrasting colours.
Yeah.
That's what you got.
Super effective.
I don't remember a lot. I thoroughly enjoyed it though.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think if you haven't played either of them yet and you want to play the slightly more polished game, I would recommend Inside. And I think it's, it just shows that the studio has evolved a little bit in some of the smoothness and some of the detail and how they've done things. Inside...
I'd recommend starting with Inside.
You would, like in terms of playing both? Yeah.
If it looks like your kind of game, start with Inside because... Limbo. Because Inside... Yeah, it is more advanced. There's a little more complexity to it. But, yeah, I think Limbo's a nice introduction.
Yeah. I'm probably about halfway through at the moment. I'm from what I've read, I understand that it's about the same kind of play length as Inside. Like you're looking at around a 4 or 5 hour experience. Yeah.
I think a little less.
Less. Okay. But there are sort of like hidden stuff in game that you could probably spend a little bit longer sort of trying to track down and that kind of thing from what I understand. So, yeah. But yeah, like loving it. Just absolutely loving it for all the same reasons that I liked Inside. And the reason why I picked it up and started playing it is because it actually popped up on sale on Steam this week. So I picked it up fairly cheaply. I think it was only about $10. So... And that's an absolute bargain. Like, given that it's only 4 or 5 hours gameplay, sure, but the quality of the game that you're getting is absolutely worth the price of admission. I would not question that at all. So, Imogen, it might be a game that you would enjoy quite a bit from the platformer perspective. The spooky atmosphere and stuff, I don't know how you'd find, I know that you've got a bit of a threshold when it comes to horror games, and this certainly isn't a horror game, but it does have suspense elements in it, if that makes sense.
I'm fine with this one.
Yeah, it's on my list of things to do. I wouldn't ever play it on PC. This is the type of game I would definitely play on a console if I could get it.
Yeah, I'd probably recommend that.
Yeah. So, but there's a couple of games like Limbo that I've now got on a list, and one that I added to this week that I don't know. Just keep pipping Limbo. Every time Limbo comes up, something else pops up before it. So.
Well, I don't know if it's on sale on console at the moment. I suspect not. It's probably just a Steam thing, but
Yeah, I'm going to start making a list. Can I make a list on PlayStation of like things that I might like?
Yeah.
Or like pin things? I know you can pin them on Xbox. Like if you're interested in the game, you just pin it to your dashboard or whatever. And you can buy it that way. But yeah, I have to figure out PlayStation. I'm still not a PlayStation native.
Yeah.
So
I don't use the PS Store often enough to know the answer to that, but I would assume it's in their best interest to have people be able to favourite something they want to buy, because, why wouldn't that be a store thing? You want to encourage sales, of course. So. I want
like a wish list.
Yeah.
Like my Steam wish list is getting out of control at this stage, but I need like a PlayStation one, because there is like a bunch of games, like I said. Like What Remains of Edith Finch.
Oh, yeah, I want to play that too. Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as I can finish this unit, I want to get stuck into that. So
Nice. Well, let me know when you do, and maybe we can play that one at the same time and compare notes or something. That would be cool.
it'd be cool. It was because someone I was listening to a podcast and they compared it to Firewatch in terms of narrative.
Nice.
So I was like, oh, I'm down. I like those.
Yep. There's some of these kooky little indie games, always a good fun. So anyway, that's all I'll sort of say about Limbo. The spider's a major part of it in the opening sort of parts of the game, and there's some really cool puzzle things around how to evade that thing, which I won't spoil for people. But the first time it pops out, it is scary as fuck. So yeah, and if you've seen any screenshots of this game and you sort of look at the size that we're talking about, you'll understand why. So yeah, it is cool.
Creepy spider.
Yeah, so what else have you ladies had on this week? Any cool gamings?
So after we announced that Armello had released the Bandit Clan as a purchasable DLC with their latest patch, we've been playing a little bit. And it's been fabulous. And it culminated in this game last night between me, Mimo, Ollie, and Jason in this amazing fight. Oh my god. With one turn left to go before the king died and everyone out of the palace, we were all within 1 prestige of each other. It was just astonishing. And Mimo managed to pit me at the post. I was being all sneaky. I was like accumulating rot in secret because I had that item that hides my rot value and managed to get a royal scepter right at the end, which bumped up my prestige. And then Imogen stole another item off me that allowed her to get to her last quest. I was like, damn it.
Yeah, so I saw that Jamie had the Royal Scepter, which gives her 1 prestige for every settlement she has. And then I drew the Cat Burglar card, which is to steal an item. And I had enough money and magic to be able to screw with somebody. And I knew that the only way I was going to win the game... I will note that this entire game, all I was trying to do was to get the achievement, to get 13 rot. So I was not focusing on actually winning the game at all.
It's amazing.
And suddenly it became, in the last turn, it became a prospect. So I thought, well, I'll play Cat Burglar on Jam. I'll see what I get. The turn before, she got the boots that mean that you can traverse over swamps and mountains with no penalty.
Oh, the winged boots. Those things are awesome.
The winged boots, yeah. So I did Cat Burglar. I was like, oh, it's not the scepter, but it's the winged boots. I'm like, well, they're not useful. And then I suddenly realized that, yes, it is, because that allows me enough movement now to get into the palace where my final quest was, which would put me 1 prestige up. But then Jam had a card that was going to give her prestige at dawn, so then we would have been equal and she still would have been the leader, probably. So then I managed to draw the same card as Jam did, so the next morning I also gained prestige. And so I won just at the dawn that the king died in the last moment. And I wasn't sure it was going to happen. I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if this is going to work.
And Ollie and Jason were 1 prestige behind. Like, it was close.
That
was so good.
Yeah, and the ability to gain 13 rot in that game and then still win without using the rot I was pretty happy with myself.
Well, I got absolutely slaughtered a few rounds before the end of the game. I had the final quest in the palace, and I was going to head there, reveal my rot score, and take on the king in a rot fight, but I just kept getting smashed.
Yeah.
Like Jason in particular. Just
the number of times you play that game and you've got all the tools to pull out the win and then someone else just beats you to the post, it's so frustrating at times.
But he unleashed about 5 spell cards on me to kill me as soon as I left my clan grounds after the last time I'd been killed. I spent the last few rounds of the game in my little nook, just like completely hemmed in. But it was so good because the whole length of the game, like some of us weren't feeling it. We weren't sure what was going on. Imogen was focusing on getting her rot achievement. And then right towards the end, it just picked up because everyone realized they had a shot.
Yeah.
Equally. Usually you've got 1 or 2 who are clearly the front runners and the rest are just trying to mess them up for as long as possible.
It's the amazing part of Armello that still to this day we can have games where we have new ways of winning, and usually you can turn it around in a couple of turns. If you work really hard at it and you know what cards you're looking for, you can easily sort of if you know what cards have come out, you know, the likelihood of you getting other cards, you can sort of get a better idea of where you should head. Whether you should concentrate on just killing people and hoping for the best or actually sort of going for the win yourself. But I've seen some great endings to games, though, as well. I've seen Ollie, he pulled a Luke, but he pulled a Luke in a new way. I don't know if we even talked about this on the podcast, the time that Luke was, he was going to go to the palace. He was pretty certain of killing the king, except he played Hot Rot 1 himself without realizing that takes a -1 health, and he killed himself. So that's right.
I don't think I've done that. I think I've played it on myself before I lose all my action points, but yeah.
Yeah, he's done that, definitely.
Yes, you played it on yourself and then entered the palace.
Yeah, it's a timing mistake.
It was a bit silly.
Basically.
Yeah. This time round, Ollie had 4 spirit stones, and this is a new mechanic in the game because now when you have spirit stones, every time you gain a rot, you also lose a health. So not only did Ollie lose 1 health to the card, he then also gained 1 rot, which meant he lost another health. So he'd accounted for 1, but not the other, and killed himself.
That's awesome.
It was so funny. And Imogen was so silent. She flew in. She knew what was happening.
I'm actually really glad you mentioned that because that is totally a mistake I could make in future.
I was not paying attention at all.
I wasn't, to be so everything that's new in Armello, I'm never 100% sure. I can just read and sort of, I guess, I interpret it until I can see it, like the prestige that you play on settlements. I wasn't sure if that was something you get if you own the town or just the person who plays it and all this sort of stuff. So I wasn't sure if it was going to kill him, but when he got down to 2 health, I'm like, well, I guess we'll find out.
Nice guinea pig. Hey, actually,
it was great.
I was going to mention to both of you, and probably you more so, Imogen, because I think this is something you'd be quite interested in checking out as well. As I do occasionally, I like to look at sort of videos of past panels and talks from various different video game devs, particularly on games that I'm quite fond of. And during the week, I actually managed to discover a presentation that Trent Custers from League of Geeks had done on basically the Armello post-mortem, sort of, after launch and everything at GDC in 2016. So you can actually find this talk now. It's located on YouTube, and I think you can get it at gdcvault.com, where they keep a lot of the past videos from the conference. But basically, it's Trent, who, he's one of the 3 company directors, or the 3 heads of the Hydra, as League of Geeks call it. And he sort of does a lot of the public sort of speaking stuff for them. But he basically gets up and chats for a full hour about how Armello went from go to woe with regards to all its creation, sort of, the development journey, how they actually put together a model that ensured that everybody got paid for their contributions. And it's a very different way of sort of working from the company sort of structure perspective, where they could sort of leverage work from people all over the world. It was really fascinating to listen to, how they handled their Kickstarter, what they learnt and what mistakes they made, all that sort of stuff. Like, I thoroughly recommend it. It's a full hour, but I was not bored for a single second of it. It was really, really revealing stuff. No.
I've seen Trent talk before, so that sounds awesome.
You should check it out. It's called A Journey of Spirit and Peril. It's called the Armello post-mortem.
So good, and it makes me love them even more. Like, you don't need to share that journey. You certainly don't need to share that journey as probably as an indie studio and those types of things. But they do it because they've got that mindset of sharing and learning and helping the community. And it's something that I think is distinct for the Australian gaming community in a lot of regards. Of course, I'm not part of the industry in a large way, but from the outside, it appears that there is a lot more collaboration and help in that regard here than necessarily the indie studios that are located around the world, because they have to battle a lot of other hurdles first, and it's better if they do that together.
It's that whole rising tide floats all boats mentality. It's really good.
Yeah. And I mean, even V and Matt were saying, when they were on, like, if you go to the arcade in Melbourne, it's a co-working space for gaming and gaming related. And they mean it. They don't work in isolation, and they don't go to their own offices. They talk to each other and share, and have a lot of events where they can celebrate each other's wins. Whereas otherwise they may be competitors. So just amazing. Yep. I love you, Australian gaming industry.
Yes, absolutely. Anyway, so Imogen, you were mentioning that you were playing a fun new game today. What have you been up to?
Speaking of things that I love, wasting my time on iOS games. So because Hearthstone kicked me out of Tavern Brawl this week, which I wasn't very happy about. I mean, it didn't kick me out. I could have played, but when it told me it was going to be tough, I was like, I can't be bothered. So I've been looking for a new mobile game, and just today I read an article on one of the gaming sort of review websites about a new iOS game called Matchland, which is a 3-match game where you manage a store that sells weird and wonderful soups and buns and things. And so you've got to, using the match game, you defeat different enemies in a turn-based kind of combat. Mm-hmm. So you've got a match base of things, and that will give you your attack, and then it attacks the enemies, which is really fucking cool. And they're adorable little blobs, tiny adorable mushrooms, and little vipers with adorable little faces. And it's all very cute. And so as you do that and you defeat them, you collect them for use in your food at your stores.
Damn.
That's not dark at all.
Yeah, and when you fight the boss, he's like, please stop turning us into food. And I'm like, ha ha ha. But you level up your adventurers with like amulets and tokens and that kind of stuff. So it's got all like the fun sort of stuff that we sort of played in Epic Manager, that kind of idea of like managing a little team, but it's also got the fun elements of the match game, which endeared me to games such as You Must Build a Boat, which if you have not checked out, that is an amazing game. Also available on iOS. But Matchland is free. It is super fun. I'm sure I'm going to get bored of it soon, but I played it in my downtime today on my way home, and I love it. It's adorable. I will continue to play it. I feel like there's a deeper strategy to it that I'm missing.
Nice.
But it is getting harder. They do attack you, and you lose life, so you have to sometimes choose between whether or not you're going to use your matches to heal you or to fight them. So
Interesting.
it's actually quite clever. It seems on the surface to be very simple iOS game, and it does have microtransactions if you want, blah, blah, blah. But I haven't come up against any sort of glaring walls at this stage. It seems like as long as you don't play it exhaustively, you don't have to spend any money in the game.
Yeah.
But, so if you're into if you want a game that just to pass the time or while you're traveling or whatever else, then I highly recommend Matchland, especially if you're a fan of very cute little squidgy things with adorable faces.
Matchland. It's hilarious. Like when you actually noted that name, that game name down, I thought for a second it would be like a fireworks factory simulator or something. But no, that's totally not what I thought it was.
Matchland.
No.
Oh dear. It's not available on the next platform that we will talk about as we move into the news, which is Steam have made some changes to how gifting works in their store. And very unfortunately, it kind of screws us a little bit. So not only to get the Australia tax, but now they've taken away one way that a lot of users, I guess, have used to receive copies of the games for a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, it's an interesting sort of situation. I mean, it's not... Yeah, I'll break it down in terms of the detail, because to understand why this might be a problem for Australians, I think you probably need to understand exactly how it works. So one of the things that has been happening for a while in Steam now is there's been a situation with Steam gifting and some price discrepancies when it's cross-border gifting. So one of the big sort of entities that often takes advantage of this situation is key resellers, because they often make significant margins on being able to do cross-country gifting through Steam. And of course, if there's a significant difference in the price, then they can work that to their angle. And that's not great for games developers, sort of, having the sort of, the key resellers basically take control over distributing their product. It's not exactly a perfect situation. And, there's certainly been some less savory entities that have, taken advantage of that. There's been a lot of negative press in the games media recently about companies like G2A and, all the sorts of ways that developers are potentially getting screwed out of their shady business practices. But the unfortunate side effect is going to be for countries like us, where we actually do have a significant difference in terms of the price that we get charged in Australia versus other countries. One of the things that they've done now is that they've removed gift to email and gift to inventory options. So it's purely a direct exchange from gift buyer to gift receiver on Steam now. And in addition to that, if there's a substantial price difference between the country in which the game's purchased and the country of the recipient, the game is actually just flat out not available to be purchased as a gift. So I mean, it's kind of good in a way that you know up front whether it's possible or not, because you don't have to worry about, whether a gift to inventory or a gift to email is actually going to work for a friend. But now some of those options are just going to be completely removed. It can, to a certain extent, come down to the game developer or the games company in question. And if they set a competitive sort of price that is not too varied across different countries, then it won't be an issue.
It has to be the same.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it has to be exactly the same. I think that there's a margin, and it can't be outside of that margin. But, obviously, if it is the same, it's not going to be a problem. So, but yeah, a lot of them won't do that because, obviously, then they would be shouldering the cost and they'd get punished by some of the other variances in currency. So, yeah, we end up getting a bit screwed at the end of the day, which is unfortunate. But, hey, what's new?
A lot of the Australia tax isn't just flat out our exchange rate, though. There is an amount on top of that. So if game developers are aware of that and they take that into account when selling in Australia, then that would be grand. But yeah, the gifting from international to Australia, I didn't realise was a thing. I should have been leveraging this the whole time.
Oh, you and me both.
Oh, far out. But I don't think this way. And I don't like those code resellers. I know when big games come out, we've got a group that we quite regularly, people will share sort of cheap ways to get them. But whenever it's like, go to this website, they'll send you a key and then you log into this. And I'm just like, I was always taught that if it's too good to be true, it often is. And sometimes some of the prices that you get for those Steam codes, I'm just like, I'm just not sure this isn't going to screw me down the line somehow.
Yeah, exactly. There are very few of them like you that I will use these days. Probably the one that I do err on the side of caution with is I quite like using Good Old Games because they actually do a really good service for the games industry.
Pretty good.
Yeah, they remaster and retool a lot of older games as well and do some fantastic work on that. So yeah, they're pretty good. But yeah, no, buyer beware.
They've got a decent website though. You can always tell by the website. Sometimes when I get sent links and I'm like, this website is weird and there is 5,000 ads on it, I am not down.
Yeah, absolutely. But another interesting thing this week with regards to Steam and Valve, Valve actually sort of went into a bit of a sort of news mode this week, and they actually put up a really wordy blog post that went through a fair bit of detail as to how the Steam recommendations system actually works on the platform. And it's something that they haven't actually had a lot of transparency about in the past, but they've actually shown now some of the reasons as to why games are shown to you on that recommendations algorithm and sort of what stuff goes into that. And you can check it out on your Steam pages now. You can actually see like there's a list of reasons why you might like X game that are listed now, and things like positive user reviews, or if it's been recommended by curators that you happen to follow, or if you've got friends that actually want that game or friends that already own the game. That is the sort of stuff that goes into why a game might be suggested to you. And I think that, a lot of the stuff that you'll see on that makes a whole bunch of sense. And it's quite cool to see some of the inner workings for a change. So, yeah, check it out.
It's also, your Steam queue, you can always say, like, I don't want to see this anymore. Like, if you go into your actual Steam queue, you can say, like, no, I don't. Prior to this, you could always say, no, that's not the sort of thing I'm looking at, which is super handy because the amount of times that we have to play games that are just not in my wheelhouse, now I just get recommended 5,000 puzzle games because that's what I've been purchasing on Steam. So I have to keep telling Steam I'm not interested. No, shut that down. None of that. None of the Witness, not interested. So it's pretty cool. At least I'll be able to see it's because, Jam plays this weird game, so that's why you got, shared this. Yeah. But you know what? If it's Luke plays this weird game versus Jam plays this weird game, I'll also be able to tell that maybe I'll like the one that Jam likes, even though it's weird. Probably not the one that Luke likes.
Oh, come on. We share some tastes on a bunch of things. Don't be that harsh.
We do. But yeah, I don't know. Just Jam's little adventures into wandering games when she's avoiding AAA titles is quite fun to follow. What was hoping to be something we would enjoy following, which is a little bit of trouble even before it's really begun, has been Overwatch's foray into the eSports arena. Or should I say Blizzard's foray into the eSports arena with Overwatch. Of all of their titles, it was always very clear that Overwatch was going to be a great eSports title. They, this week, have announced that they're going to start integrating MLG, which they acquired last year, or Major League Gaming, into their esports division to help them launch an Overwatch esports division specifically, which will launch later this year, and everyone's all very excited. The problem being that also today we found out that this week, that 4 major esports teams have withdrawn or notified that they will be cancelling their esports campaign for Overwatch, which means in real terms, the people that they have quote unquote hired or have been training in terms of Overwatch people have been moved into other games, or they are making the investment elsewhere. When you invest in esports, you're effectively getting a house for people. They have to live together, learn to communicate, much like you would any other sort of tactical team, I guess. It becomes very militarized almost. They spend a lot of time playing the game.
Yes, they do.
And they're expected to know every aspect of the game, from its very base roots all the way up to, being quite innovative and trying to make changes. So some of the big teams that have lost, I'm just looking up now because I've forgotten all of their names. Team Solo Mid have pulled out. Red Reserve have also resigned their team on May 5th. A lot of what they're saying is that they're just a little bit concerned about how much it will actually be for them to register and play in the esports league. Yeah. And in terms of other things that they are concentrating on as teams, obviously we had IEM in Sydney where some of these guys were, and so they're concentrating on things like CSGO, Call of Duty, and FIFA, specifically in regards to Red Reserve. So really they've got to make a decision about where they're going with it and how likely it is that they will make money / be successful in that league. And for whatever reason, some of the big names are pulling out of the Overwatch one. So
it seems to
we'll
be
see
a
what
few
happens.
reasons, though. Like, I don't get the sense that it's a lack of confidence in the game so much. I mean, it obviously is a fairly new
preclusion,
esport.
it's expense.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, it's like almost any other, big sport. You need to essentially buy a spot to play in that sport. And, those can be quite expensive. Like, you could, for major sports, you're often looking at multiple millions of dollars, depending on where and what it is. And esports probably not quite that much, but you'd still be paying a fair bit of money to enter, official tournaments and things like that. But I think it's also an opportunity cost, because a lot of these esports sort of organizations have got their focus split across a whole bunch of different games as well. And it's just, maybe spreading themselves a little too thin in some cases. And that's why they've erred on the side of caution, so they can double down on the games that they are actually performing competitively in. So, yeah.
Well, they actually have whole teams that they may or may not be dropping. So that it's not like those people have been taken away from the other games necessarily, because they've probably been hired specifically for Overwatch.
No, but there's other resources that we're talking about here as well, like the funds in particular, and also, there's that whole sort of logistical admin engine behind a lot of these organisations that don't account for just the players themselves. So,
but the issue here is that they're all dropping Overwatch. It isn't that some of them have dropped CSGO to focus on Overwatch, and others have
all
dropped
Overwatch. Yeah. So, and it's coming in line with reports that apparently the New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft and another NFL team owner have both purchased spots for the league. Now, those people are very wealthy. So I think the fact that they have purchased spots ahead of time means that they maybe have a vested interest, and maybe these teams are, like you say, Luke, they don't think they have the financial resources to compete against funding like that.
Yeah.
And maybe they want to focus, but it is like Jam said, they've basically looked at all of their games and gone, you know what, we'll stick with the existing, which is not great for the still to be announced Overwatch Esports League. Maybe once it's announced, they'll either come back on. But the thing is, the reason why these teams have existed and they're now resigning is because they've had to prep for a long period of time before this starts. You can't just say, all right, there's an esports league, here's a team, boop, on the ground, go.
Yeah.
They're like any sports team. They have to have trained in the particular sport for some time. So the fact that they're pulling out without sort of further concrete details, we'll see. But the integration of MLG is a positive, and is just using the Activision investment last year, which was quite a lot of money, and will bring a lot of great insight and knowledge into the organization about setting up it so that it is a bit more robust. So the teams that are still involved hopefully will be able to grow it to the point that maybe these teams will start reinvesting again. But at this stage, not looking great. There's some big teams. So It would have been a good win for the esports to start with them, but the esports league will happen regardless.
Yeah.
It'll just be who's playing, and therefore the size of the I think Overwatch will carry it a long way as well in terms of just the game. Because obviously, I think I'd probably watch an Overwatch sports league, eSports league for sure.
Yeah, I'd be interested. I mean, it could just be a slow sort of build up for the first year as opposed to just like a gigantic splash, but it'll be one of those things that finds its footing and increases in size as people gain confidence. So, yeah.
I really hope so. And I think it would be great, like commentated and so much variation in gameplay, whereas I find sometimes watching CSGO, because I don't play it, I'm not super interested, and I don't play League of Legends. I can sometimes watch League of Legends, and that's not so bad, but the fact that I play Overwatch a lot and it becomes an esports lead is I'm starting to understand the appeal.
Well, I mean, Overwatch is certainly appealing for a lot of people. There's been some interesting stuff that's come out over the last week, sort of with the Blizzard earnings report for the first quarter of this year. They've now confirmed that Overwatch has more than 30 million registered players. It's continuing to be their fastest growing new franchise. And the game itself has now made more than $1 billion. So Overwatch is doing okay.
Wow. So many loot boxes.
They're doing just fine. I mean, the game is distinctly separate from the esports league.
Yeah.
But yeah, carried on coattails. The new Assassin's Creed game has had a bit of a screenshot leak and maybe a potential name this week. But I am not a big expert in this realm, so I'm going to hand over to you guys.
Well, I mean, Jan, what do we sort of know about recent Assassin's Creed games in terms of the ongoing storyline? They've really, I mean, since the Ezio games of 1, 2, and 3, they've really kind of just mixed it up, and it's been quite all over the place, hasn't it?
Yeah, I played and loved Black Flag and got Unity, started it, and just never finished it and haven't played one since. I've been meaning to go back to it, but the interesting thing about this little leak is that it's a picture of a boat. Which is awesome because Black Flag is the shit, but it's just a little skiff, whatever you call it, not a gigantic ship. So I'm hoping it's a hint at some more seafaring because that was just the most amazing part.
Yeah, it seems to be the direction. I mean, the stuff that we know about it is that there's very, very heavy rumours, and we've been hearing these for a while now, that the setting's going to be somewhere in Egypt. And it'll sort of be a prequel to the other games. So the title that got sort of leaked this week is Assassin's Creed Origins, which again really does sort of double down on that prequel angle. But some other stuff that's been talked about this week is that the game is going to span a larger area than just Egypt. Like the map is going to span a few different countries, and boat travel will make a comeback in the same way that Black Flag sort of utilized it, which will allow players to go to countries outside of Egypt, like Greece, for example.
So we'll sail the Mediterranean?
Yeah, could be.
Oh, amazing.
So, I mean, E3's next month, so pretty safe bet we're going to hear a bunch of stuff next month.
Yeah.
I'm fairly hopeful about this one because I think that, you know, if it is set in Egypt, sign me up because I love that whole setting. It's just perfect. You know, boat travel, again, huge plus. But the fact that they've actually taken a break between titles and had like an additional year of development, I think that's probably a bigger factor here, and that we're going to get a much better and more polished Assassin's Creed. So, yeah, we'll see what they come up with. But I'm cautiously optimistic. I think it looks good.
But so it's not, there's no word, I take it, on whether it's like a mainline numbered. I'm guessing it won't be numbered.
No, I mean, yeah. I mean, who knows? I don't think they really revealed that sort of stuff about like some of the recent titles until you really got stuck in and started playing it, because a lot of that's kind of, you know, shrouded under the title secrecy, and, you know, when you jump in and start playing, only then do you kind of realize whether it ties in or not. So, yeah.
Cool. I got to keep my eye on that one.
Another thing that came up that is going to distract Jam, but maybe get you to play Horizon Zero Dawn again, but we'll see, is that a new patch has gone live with a new photo mode so that you can experience being a hipster in a post-apocalyptic world.
I mean,
she's such a hipster in this game.
It's important because, I mean, the number of times I tried to take a cool photo of Aloy and she looked constipated was a little frustrating. But now I'll be able to pose her. Oh my God. They're adding new filters and this is going to be fun. I'm going to inundate you with shit.
See, I'd love to make fun of Jam taking photos in Horizon Zero Dawn, but my current desktop is a photo that Jam took in Horizon Zero Dawn.
It's just that good. Oh my gosh.
So I could do one with a little bit more colour. This one's a little black and white. So
Oh, yes, I did do some washed out shots. I was being artistic.
Yeah.
you were putting your own filters in.
Yeah. In addition to the photo mode, though, there's some other really good stuff. I'm so glad, like, being able to sell a stack of items in your inventory. Huzzah!
Yeah, thank
Because,
goodness.
oh my god, that's so annoying. You'll be able to filter icons on the map and some other bits and pieces. You can sort items in your inventory. You customize the HUD a little more, the camera a little more.
Yep.
So yeah, there's little bits and pieces that just make the game more enjoyable, easier to use.
Do you not think the great thing about all of this, especially the photo mode upgrades, is that like particularly with the photo mode upgrades, this is a game that already excelled at this particular feature. They didn't need to add this. The fact that they're adding it and making it even better. I mean, Guerrilla Games, big shout out to them. This is some crazy good fan service.
100%.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, so many of the photos I take don't have Aloy in it because it's so hard to have her look like she belongs in the shot. I took some amazing ones where I had her jumping and drawing a bow, but that took a little finessing too. But now if I can get her to just smile or look in the right direction once I
Make
frame
a
the
heart
shot.
with her hands.
You can actually hide
so
her headgear
cute.
with the new update as well, which will be handy for that sort of shot. So
Yeah, it's fantastic. And yeah, I'm going to be taking more photos.
It'll be good to get some new shots. But I think I might actually go in and take some of my own because there's still parts of the game I have to finish. So, and now that I've seen a lot of the world, I have some cool spots that I want to go check out. So, but if it makes you finish the game so I can finally talk to you about it, that would be grand.
I know. I'm getting there. I promise.
That's all right. You'll finish Persona before me and we'll trade off. Another game that we played some time ago and just want to quickly mention is The Secret World, which is a free-to-play MMORPG, correct?
Yes.
We talked about it a while ago. It's very Lovecraftian, the current version of it.
Yeah.
And, got zombies and all sorts of weird stuff going on. There is a new iteration of it called Secret World Legends, and we have just found out that it will launch on June 26th. It is really good. I mean, it's still a free-to-play online MMO, so, it has, elements that aren't as polished as something which you might pay a subscription for. But in terms of the free online MMOs, it's pretty good.
Oh, there was
And we
no
got
lack of
great-
content in the previous version at all. There was
Not
heaps.
at all. And the only thing that stopped me playing it was the genre. Like, the genre just didn't really grab me. I wasn't really interested. Only really interested when you guys were playing.
Though, it's
but-
quite unique. So, like a lot of people who have sort of done the whole high fantasy and thing, they might be looking for something that's more real world timeline, eldritch horror kind of
With
stuff.
the supernatural,
Yeah, I'm not trying to talk it down at all. I'm losing my voice. I'm not trying to talk it down at all. I'm just saying that it's very different sort of world.
Yeah.
To the ones that are out there. I mean, the other free to play online ones are the Elder Scrolls, etc. So there isn't an awful lot of Secret World-esque type things out there, but it looks really good. And there's a couple of people I know who will be jumping into it from our group, so I'm sure you guys will dive back in. I don't know if I have space in my heart for another MMO, but
It's so tough these days because there's so many other things to divide your attention.
It's really tough. And I will say that I am turning back into a bit of a console gamer now, sort of favouring time on my couch, especially now that we can chat using PS4 Party Chat. So bonuses.
There you go.
But that is the news for this week. Kind of sporadic, and I apologise for large pauses and coughs.
That's all
between
good.
There.
All right. Well, I mean, speaking of new games and particularly ones that we might enjoy to play on console, not that you have to in this case. This week is the week where it is time to do our big chat about the new game Prey from Arkane Studios. So now this is a really super interesting one to talk about because I think before this last week when everything launched, there was a definite gap in terms of what knowledge was available for this game. There was a whole bunch of people just sort of going, yeah, we kind of know this is coming, but we really don't know what it's about. I think both of you probably fall square into this category as well. Would that be a safe thing to say?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, all right, now Prey, I'm just going to get the basics out of the way first because I think that, I guess the overarching ways this game actually came to be is quite interesting in its own right. So now Prey, you'd be forgiven for getting confused with another game by the name of Prey that actually came out in 2006. This is not the first Prey. So in 2006, there was actually a first-person shooter that was developed by Human Head Studios and released by 2K Games. This was basically a game where you played as like a Cherokee protagonist who is abducted aboard an alien spaceship, and you basically have to try and fight your way out of that situation. It was a weird kind of sci-fi horror kind of game, with alien antagonists and all this sort of stuff. Now there was a sort of bit of history with the rights of Prey. It got passed on to Bethesda and then eventually got cancelled because the developers that were behind it sort of, were no longer sort of able to complete the work they were doing on it. It sort of sat in development hell for a long time. And then eventually it passed over to Arkane Studios, who, basically put the reboot together and have worked over the last few years to do that. Now, they were sort of there was going to be a Prey 2 for a while, but that kind of got absorbed into this big sort of disaster that happened and gobbled up. And what has come out now, you're better off just looking at it as a complete reboot of the franchise, because it is certainly not a sequel to the original Prey. It is a whole fresh slate. I mean, the only thing that really has carried over from the nature of Prey in its original form is that you're a person and there are aliens, and it's a bit of a sci-fi horror kind of game, and that's where it ends. So, yeah, you don't need to play the previous one at all. That's kind of, you can almost forget about it and just start with this one. I would not be surprised if there's sequels to this game in the future, but I don't think... I mean, there could be confusion over the whole Prey 2 sort of thing again, but I mean, who knows? Anyway, ignore all that. Prey 2017, we'll call it. All right, so basic synopsis of the game. It is a action-adventure game that focuses on a first-person perspective of your main character by the name of Morgan Yu. Now, Morgan Yu, interestingly enough, is actually an Asian character. It's only really relevant in the very beginning where you sort of see some images of yourself in a mirror, because for the rest of the game you don't really see yourself, so it's kind of, it's a psychological thing more than anything else. You can choose to play as a male or female version of Morgan, which is, it's a very sort of gender non-specific name. It's kind of clever how they've done that. You don't really get to customize yourself because you don't have like a face editor similar to your Fallout games or anything like that. And so you do have a set look, but again, it's not particularly relevant past the point of seeing yourself in the very, very intro of the game. And it has just come out. It is set in a sci-fi sort of setting aboard a space station by the name of Talos 1 for the most part of the game. And as far as sort of additional characters and cast go, it's pretty limited because it is a very sort of suspenseful kind of game where the isolation of your situation is a big part of what drives the atmosphere, and you kind of navigating through the environment and the space station, for the most part wondering what the hell is going on. So it's really, really, really interesting. Now, how many of you, and by how many I mean either of you, have played System Shock or Fallout or any of those sorts of games? Yeah,
Fallout.
You played Fallout. What about... sorry, Fallout's not the one I meant to say.
I was going to say.
No.
It's like Fallout?
No,
cool.
no, not Fallout. The one I was thinking of was BioShock.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no.
Would you kindly
Yes.
tell me more?
So I don't have a huge amount of experience with BioShock. I played a bit of Infinite, and this game has some definite feels of that kind of game.
Then you have no idea what I just said. Never mind.
No. I do understand what you just said. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Good.
A lot of people have actually sort of claimed that Prey is apparently a spiritual successor to System Shock, and I think Ollie would probably get more out of that comparison than I would, having not sort of played a lot of System Shock. But I mean, I think that the comparisons are mostly in terms of the way that you sort of navigate the environment, and there's a bit of puzzle stuff involved. The narrative kind of plays out gradually as you navigate the world. It's not sort of served up to you on a rail line platter of any sort. You kind of have to go at your own pace and discover it as you go. But yeah, it's super, super interesting. Imogen, I would say probably up front, there's a couple of things about this game that would be immediate turn-offs for you. And this will become clear as we kind of go through and discuss it. But one of the things would be the sci-fi setting. It is very much a spacey kind of thing. So, I know you're not sort of automatically turned off by those kind of settings, but it's not necessarily your preferred one when it comes to open world games.
No, and what I know of it, that sort of initially, the kind of overarching feel of it doesn't feel like my type of game, but I am interested to learn more.
Cool. Well, the horror elements too might be an interesting one for you because, the aliens that you're up against, which are called the Typhon, are kind of scary. They're very frighteningly designed in terms of the aesthetics. Have either of you seen that Tom Cruise sci-fi movie of recent years, The Edge of Tomorrow? You seen that one?
Yes.
So the
sequel's just been announced.
Yeah, I know.
By the way,
ridiculous name for that one. What was it? Live, Die, Repeat, and Repeat. What a dumbass movie name. Anyway, Jamie, remember the aliens actually in that movie? How they've got that weird kind of metallic, viscous kind of shifting skin like type.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's kind of what the Typhon look like.
Nope. Said one of the trigger words. No, thank you.
Yeah. I knew that would be the case. So, yeah, like the setting in terms of the history that's led up to this point, it's kind of like an alternate sort of future where, like, literally what has happened to put you in this setting is going back to the history of America and how the sort of space race against the Russians sort of kickstarted. In this version of history, basically JFK is never assassinated. So you have a situation where basically there's a lot more money that goes into the funding of the space race and a lot more sort of cooperation that happens with the Russians in terms of sort of getting out and exploring space and developing that kind of technology, which leads to a situation, and this is all covered in sort of history at the very beginning of the game, no spoilers here, where basically the Typhon as an alien race are discovered and they're studied and, they become part of like this giant sort of research space station, which is, basically what eventually ends up becoming Talos 1 where the game is set. So these aliens, it's not like a first encounter story. It's very much a case of these aliens are known about in the setting of the game, but you don't really know as much about them as you think you do, and that sort of plays out as you go. So there's a lot more things that are revealed about the nature of them and how much of a threat they potentially are and that kind of stuff. So super, super interesting. I will say that the very, very beginning of the game, like particularly the first half hour or so, is probably one of the strongest half hours at the beginning of a game of this nature that I've seen in a long time. Like the setup is spectacularly good. It really turns your setting on its head very early on in terms of questioning everything that you think you know and where you are and sort of, what the heck is going on. And it really does play with your sort of sense of fear and perspective quite a bit in unexpected ways. And I think it's really, really good how it sets up the rest of the game and you don't quite know what's going on. So that sort of reason to get out and explore is very, very much motivated sort of past that beginning part of the game. And just really little touches too. Like there's this one thing that they do, which I thought was hilarious where, at the beginning of, have you both played Borderlands 2? So Jam, I know you've played Borderlands 2. So, at the beginning of Borderlands 2, how there's that video intro where they sort of show the psychopaths or whatever it is, the dudes with the masks, and they're kind of, having that massive sort of car accident sort of intro video, and it shows the game credits sort of in the background as parts of the scenery.
Intros, yes.
Yeah, they do something very similar to that. Yeah. And it's totally integrated with what you're doing. So it's not sort of out of place. It's not like a deliberate video intro. It's completely sort of seamlessly integrated in your surroundings, but it's just so well done. Like I was sitting back and just nearly cheering at the screen. It was just really awesome. Yeah, the game is a story of very, very thoughtful little touches like that throughout. They've really put a lot of thought into the environment, like particularly in terms of even the space station, like even Talos 1, you can actually see where it's a space station that has sort of been built by lots of different nations over time, like in terms of the history of how this thing's come to be. And it shows in the architecture, like you can actually see different areas of the architecture that have sort of, carried on aesthetics that you'd expect to come from different country styles of, tech, if that makes sense. So it's not immediately obvious, but once you sort of notice it once or twice and you go looking for it, you start to really appreciate your surroundings more. Like they've put a lot of effort into that kind of thing, which is cool. So yeah. But anyway, so general gameplay. You basically, you're wandering around, you have a set of weapons like you do in most sort of first-person games of its nature, and you collect them as you go along, and you can sort of upgrade your weapons and things like that. The ability system is quite unique in that there's things that you pick up called neuromods. And what they are is essentially things that you plug into yourself to download information, which you can sort of... It's almost like the Matrix in a way. Like in the Matrix, you know how they sort of download like skills to the people outside the Matrix, like the kung fu fighting and that kind of stuff. It's almost like that. Like you're installing basically skills like directly into your brain kind of thing. The device that they show you at the very beginning of explaining this whole system is suitably scary. It's like a little sort of... like hand pistol type thing with like this spike that comes out, and you're supposed to put this thing up against your eye and pull the trigger and like insert it. And it's just, yeah.
No, I'm 400% out. I also googled the aliens. Nope.
Yep.
Nope.
So yeah, that's kind of interesting. But the neuromods, like you basically find them littered throughout the game as you go through, and they're extremely valuable because some of the skills in the beginning of the game only require like one neuromod to learn, and then later on they require double that and then double that again, and it actually gets quite intensive as to how many of these you need to unlock different skills. But the way that you decide to progress your character, you have a lot of agency in how you choose to do that, and especially early on in the game, there is definitely not enough of these things to sort of be a jack of all trades effectively. You kind of need to pick a direction or two and go for it. So, but the really cool way that the game works with that is that a lot of the different areas and challenges that it presents you with, there's multiple ways to go about sort of progressing through it. So just to give you a really, really simple example, there could be like a locked weapons storage sort of area. And this isn't necessarily part of the game. This is just a context example of how it could play out. Now, you can try and find like the access card or the key code to open the door to that area, which might involve you doing a whole bunch of exploring and getting to different areas. Or you can try and find another way in, and that could be like setting off a explosion, or it could be activating a piece of machinery that reveals like an opening, or it could be trying to find access through the ventilation, or it could be something like that. But often to access some of those different methods, you actually need to have some of these different skills unlocked. So you might have had to spend sort of neuromod points in hacking, for example, or maybe in lifting, so you can actually lift heavy crates and objects out of the way. And if you haven't done that, then those ways aren't open to you. But there are heaps of areas in the game where there is not just one way to progress forward. There's heaps of different ways. And some of them involve a bit of cleverness and some of them involve different skills. So it's really cool that they've given you that option. And it is very open world in the sense that there are some obvious areas of the game that you could explore in a particular sequence to sort of get certain items, but a lot of the areas of Talos are actually open to you from the get-go. It's just sort of up to you whether you want to go into some of those harder areas early on or not. So like there was one area in the early parts of the game that I just completely bypassed because there was these two massive Typhon organisms in there. And I was just like, man, I've only got like a wrench at the moment. Like I could walk up and try and hit him in the head. That's about it. I really don't want to get killed by these things because they're quite scarily tough. So I'm just going to avoid this area altogether. Little did I know that by doing that, I actually missed out on a couple of really, really important items that I didn't have to get then and there, like to progress. But holy crap, it would have made things a lot easier if I did. So it's that risk versus reward payoff, which is really interesting. But I mentioned the sort of sense of tension with the sort of space horror elements before. Now, one of the things that really sort of plays this out quite well, and this is probably, if you've heard anything about Prey, this is probably the thing you've heard about. There's these creatures in the game, which are little Typhon creatures called mimics. Now, to describe what they look like, they kind of look like little four-legged sort of alien spiders in a way, okay?
I'm just thinking of D&D mimics.
No, totally not like that. Totally not like living chests.
They're
No.
like the letter X possessed by the devil.
Yeah,
Oh.
kind of like that, yeah. So they're like size-wise probably about as big as a boot. there are sort of larger versions that you might find sort of in different areas, but the basic mimics are kind of, pretty standard. Now, the reason why they're called mimics is because they can shapeshift into a whole bunch of different sort of, mundane objects. So they literally mimic their surroundings. So they lie in wait and then they spring out at you as soon as you get too close or you try and interact with whatever object they've transformed into.
Like a D&D mimic.
Yeah, kind of like that, but instead of like a D&D mimic being some of those typical items that you almost always associate with them, these
because
things...
are monstery.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's really clever because the way you can spot these things is sometimes you're in a room and you see an object in there that just looks like it's kind of out of place. Like it might be or it might not be, but just because it sows that seed of doubt in your mind, it creates that feeling of suspense, and you find yourself being extra fucking careful when you approach the thing. It could be that you've gone down a passageway where there's two sort of signs that say no entry, and you're looking at these two signs thinking, are there supposed to be two signs here, or is there supposed to only be one sign here? Kind of thing. 9 times out of 10, yes, there are supposed to be two signs. But for that 1 time out of 10 that it's not, you're really, really glad that you were extra, extra careful. So there was a situation where I walked into like a bathroom in one of the wings of the station, and there was a whole bunch of sort of toilet rolls scattered all over the ground. And I was just like, oh my God. Are all of these supposed to be here, or is maybe one of them not supposed to be here? And so I edged around all the toilet rolls really super carefully, and I was like, okay, cool, they're all safe. And I turned around, and then the sink jumped at me. So it's just, oh my God, it's just, yeah, it's weird.
Spoiler.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not necessarily a spoiler though, because when you play, it could be anything else. Like it literally could camouflage itself as anything else. They're not specifically programmed to be particular items in particular areas. I think that the algorithm they use is that they try and disguise themselves as whatever happens to be at hand when you are at a particular distance to them and they morph. So, like, your experience could be completely different to mine. I mean, the one thing that has cropped up a number of times for me, and I would be surprised if this doesn't happen at least once for you because it's a pretty obvious one, is you often see in cafeterias especially, there's a lot of sort of cups and flasks and things around. And you walk in and you're looking at them and you happen to see there's like one of them that's lying on the ground sort of just, moving like it's been knocked off the table. And it's like, oh, crap. If I go any further in here, like I am quite literally going to see a mug jump at my face. Like you're going to get...
Oh, God, it's like the worst version of prop hunt ever.
Yeah, it's exactly that. Like you walk into a room, there's a whole bunch of these things, and before you know it, you're getting space mugged. It's just crazy.
Space mugged!
It's hilarious. But... it's one of those things that, like, the first bunch of times it happens, you're just like, oh, wow, this is a really cool, unique mechanic, and, it really ratchets up the suspense level. And then when you get to the 30th or 40th time that it occurs, you're just like, oh, crap, I have to go into a room and literally be careful around every single object in here, and it gets a bit tiresome. So there are things that you obtain later on which can make the process of identifying the mimics a little bit easier, and I won't sort of spoil the details of that, but... I have been told on good authority that there are ways to spot them. Apparently there's things you can listen for. I haven't quite worked out what that is yet. I'm sure someone will be able to figure it out. I'm sure... I mean, I've been playing the game sort of direct using speakers too. Like if I was wearing headphones, it might be a little bit easier to spot some particular sound they make or something. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, no, it's a cool feature. There's no other game that I've seen that has done something like this so effectively. So it's not just your standard jump scare. It's like, it's a very, very appropriate thing for this alien entity that you're being hunted by. So it fits really nicely. There is one room in particular that I found hilarious where you walk in and there's obviously been a scientist or some sort of, lab personnel or something that has, basically gotten so paranoid about the mimics that what they've done is they've gone and put sticky notes on every single object in the room that say not a mimic.
The sticky note's a mimic.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And
no.
I found myself going around that room and you can actually take the sticky notes off. So, yeah. And I went around the room and looked at every single object that had sticky notes on it, and there were 2 that didn't, and I was just like, oh shit, are they mimics or not? Or just did he not sticky note them? And as it turned out, they weren't. But the fact that the game actually made me check is kind of a victory in itself. So, yeah, it was super interesting. The probably one of the only complaints that I would make about the enemies though is that like, because of the way they look and because they sort of, look like this sort of shape-shifting black mass for most of the part, the variety of the enemies is not immediately apparent. Like, as you go through the game, there is a bit more variety. Like, there's different ones that you kind of face. And they have different abilities and things which you kind of learn about, and you can study them later on and that sort of thing too. But especially in the opening parts of the game, like the first couple of hours, I found that it was almost like one or two different types that I was encountering constantly, and there wasn't a lot of variation. But, I mean, that's not to say there's not other things later as well. Like, there are other humans on the base, and you do encounter them, and they're not necessarily all friendly. There are robotic entities as well, and you encounter them, and they're not necessarily all friendly too. Some of them are malfunctioning, and some of them, like, you can actually... There's turrets you can find, and you can actually program them to be on the lookout for Typhon and sort of attack them, like shoot at them as they approach. But there's different things that can happen during the course of the game that can actually cause the turrets to think that you're a Typhon as well. So, then they become the enemy, and you have to be real careful around them. So there's different ways that it kind of turns the sort of system on its head with regards to what you're fighting against, which is kind of cool. So, yeah, but combat's interesting. There's a really weird variety of weapons in this game, and a lot of them have very specific purposes that don't make them good all-round weapons. So, for example, one of the weapons that you get super early on, which is one of the ones that if you've read anything about the game, you probably have read about, called the glue gun. Now, the glue gun is basically a launcher that fires out these little capsules that splatter and create big globs of glue, like giant sort of, Space Invader type, globs of glue. And by Space Invader, I mean that Space Invader stuff you might use to fill huge chunks of wall in your house kind of thing. So
you call that Space Invader? It's called No More Gaps.
No More Gaps, yeah, that's the same sort of stuff. There's a Selly brand called Space Invader. Yeah. So anyway, you can fire the glue gun at like solid objects to create these big chunks of glue, and you can actually use them as like steps or things to climb on or to seal gaps. Like if there's something chasing you and you run through a doorway, you can literally glue the door shut behind you by just throwing a whole bunch of this crap in the door. So that's kind of cool. But you can also use it to seal things off. Like if you find a fire, for example, you can literally like glue the source of the propellant shut to turn off the fire. If there was like water spraying out of something, same thing. But if you actually shoot the glue gun at enemies, it basically freezes them in place as they get covered by glue for a short period of time. And that allows you to attack them with something else. Like you can run up and smack them in the head with your wrench. So, in that situation I was talking about before where like I was fighting an enemy that was way, way more powerful than I was, like one potential option with dealing with them is to run. But if you actually need to get past them, you can glue them in spot and then run past them. Or glue them in spot and shoot them or hit them.
See ya.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's kind of cool. They don't hold for long though, like as I found out much to my dismay a number of times. So, yeah, they break out of it quite quickly. That makes me happy. Yeah. And you can glue the mimics as well when they're in shape form. Like if one of them has turned into a mug ready to space mug you and you kind of know that they're there.
Please make that the title of this episode. Please make the title of this episode Space Mug.
Sure. So if you glue them in place like while they're in object form, like they actually don't change out of object form, so you're still wondering whether you got them or not.
Glue everything. Yeah, everything exactly. Is glue.
But then if you run up to them and hit them while they're in object form and they're glued, you do sort of get them to change. So yeah, it's pretty cool like that.
So would they still move? Would they still be stuck? If they change into aliens?
They're stuck until you hit them because as you hit them, you basically shatter the glue at the same time. So,
so that's not a strategy. Okay,
well,
cool.
I mean, it can be if you can kill them in one hit. So you can actually hold down the strike button, like particularly when you've got your wrench in your hand, and you can actually do like a power swing, which does kill most mimics in one hit. So you're mostly okay. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, like one problem I found with the glue gun in particular, which was frustrating at times, is that when you fire it at enemies directly, you need to be really accurate because if you accidentally clip like a door frame or like a side of a wall or something, it'll actually give that big glob of glue on the wall or the door instantly, which actually blocks the rest of your firing shot. So if you clip something, you immediately like block the rest of your field of view, so you can't actually keep shooting at the thing. Or if you're trying to shoot at an enemy and you accidentally shoot too short and you hit the the ground, again, you're just going to keep gluing onto your glue glob. You're not actually going to be able to hit them because they're now covering behind the cover that you just made for them. So it's kind of tricky to sort of do. You have to practice a little bit, but yeah.
Glue glob.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Glob space mug.
Bunch of different weapons as well. Like you get your standard shotgun and pistol and that kind of thing, and you can get like, there's an energy gun of some sort you get later on, which I haven't encountered yet. You actually get an electric pistol, which is kind of like a stun gun of sorts, which is kind of cool. And you can manufacture ammo for all of these weapons and even like new versions of the weapons by collecting resources around the base and actually like putting them into like a 3D printer of sorts. So there's like a matter transfuser device which kind of, creates things out of thin air after you feed resources in. So, and it's one of those games where kind of like Fallout, you want to collect just about everything as you go around because there's going to be some use for it. Like you can break it down into materials and actually use that for your crafting. So you find yourself picking up like cigar butts and banana peels and random bits of metal and stuff that you find around the place, and you can chuck it all into this giant recycler machine and it just spits out chunks of matter for you, which you use in your crafting, which is really cool.
Out of thin air.
Yeah, basically you get these
but
little
not out of thin
balls
air.
of it, yeah. There's other fun ways you can get that material as well. Like there's this one grenade you get, which is called a recycler. Basically what you do is you throw it at an enemy and it kind of creates like a miniaturized black hole and sucks everything down into it. And if you throw it like at an enemy or at other objects in the room, it actually like sucks it down into it and creates like a ball of that matter. So it becomes like one of those objects that you get out of a recycler. When you actually pick up one of these grenades in a lab at one point, you can see a post-it note that's been left by one of the lab techs that says, "This ball that you see in front of you actually contains part of my foot because I didn't get out of the radius of this grenade." So, yeah, it's really, really funny. Yeah, it looks cool. It looks cool when it goes off. Yeah. So the weapons, super interesting weapons, like way more than usual first-person games. There's a lot more variety there, and they're quite unique in the way that they're used. Just the general way you navigate around the base is really cool. Like you do tend to sort of come back through areas that you've explored before because it's a really, really large area, but you have different reasons to be in different areas at different times that cause you to often double back. And there's different ways of getting around as well. Like because it's a space station, you can actually get on the outside of the space station and literally jet around in a space suit and clinging to the outside and get in through airlocks in different areas. It's almost like a fast travel, if you like, because you can travel on the inside of the base and take some of the different sort of, elevators and, different doors to different areas, or you can just pop out on the edge of the spaceship and walk around the edge of it, which, comes with its own hazards, but you can do it. You can totally do it. And, jetting around on the outside is actually kind of fun. Like it's total zero gravity and you kind of have to not push the jet too hard, otherwise you'll float off into the middle of space. Just be in all sorts of trouble. So yeah, which is cool. But yeah, like there's just so much to do in the game. It is really, really interesting. You do track sort of quest objectives as you go along, and there's a lot of side quest stuff that comes up which may or may not be like linked to the main story. I'm not actually sure. Like some of it I think is, and some of it probably isn't. But you interact with a lot of computers as you go around as well, and it gives you a really nice sort of story insight into a lot of the other personnel on board the base. Like some of them having full on nerf wars at different designated times that you read about on emails. Some of them are really snippy and snidey at each other and have these inter-office romances going on that you learn about. Some of them are smuggling shit off base and doing all sorts of nefarious sort of things. I actually ran into a few emails circulating from different characters where they were actually setting up an on-base D&D game, so that was kind of cool. So
cool.
Yeah, there's just fun stuff like that. But it's really interesting. I'm still sort of powering through the story stuff and working out what the heck's going on, and trying to work out who to trust because there's different characters that you interact with. Some of them are humans, some of them are AIs and various other different things, and you get the sense that you're not getting the whole story when you interact with any of them. So you kind of need to make some decisions as to who to trust. And I have heard it on good authority that there are a lot of different ways that this game can end based on those decisions you make. So I think that, Jam, when you actually eventually get around to playing this game, the way that you play through this game is probably going to end up being different to what I get, which will be cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like there are straight up some decisions that you make where you can actually do some pretty evil stuff to characters. Like, you can literally leave people to die in some instances if you want to, or you can not. There's advantages to doing either. And a couple of times I've sort of quick saved and done either method, and still at the end of it not being decided on which is the best one. So, yeah, it's stuff that might actually come up again later in the game. I actually don't know. So, but yeah, it's a really, really cool way to give you a good amount of control on how things play out sort of narrative-wise. But yeah. What else could I say? The sound is really impressive. The sound and the score in particular has been done by Mick Gordon, who also did the score for Doom. So his work is absolutely phenomenal. It is really, really good on this game too. The only complaint I've got about the sound is that sometimes it can be a little repetitive, and sometimes it possibly can give away sort of elements of the game where it might be more effective if you didn't hear the sort of mimic sort of background noise, if you like, because then you're not expecting one to come out. But when the music changes, you're like, okay, where is this fucking thing? Kind of thing. So
it kind of builds suspense, though. If you hear the music, like, oh crap, it's somewhere in here.
Exactly.
I hope it misleads you horribly sometimes.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, that would be cool.
I mean, I could have quite
never
easily
know.
walked past mimics and not even known, and the sound changed, and I'm like, where is this thing? And I never find it. So yeah, it's possible.
Oh.
Yeah, totally possible. There's been a bunch of memorable moments. There's this big thing that hunts you at one point, which reminds me a lot of Nemesis from Resident Evil Nemesis, which is kind of scary. And I suspect that it actually behaves differently around you based on a few different things that you have to choose throughout the game as well. So that's kind of cool. You have the option to play around with certain tech that may or may not do nasty things to yourself as well, and whether you choose to do that or not can have a bearing on how hard you make life for yourself. So yeah, it's kind of cool. But yeah, like it's really good. Only complaints I've got about the game so far, I think the opening was really, really strong. The couple of hours following that, after the intense sort of opening, were a little bit sort of more slow paced, and that kind of did get a little bit monotonous at times. You're finding your footing and you're trying to work out what the heck you're doing, and a lot of it's that learning process, but it wasn't as sort of full on thick with the sort of suspense and action and stuff as the intro was. So it was just a bit of a dip. The repetitiveness of some of the enemies I've already mentioned. The combat, if I'm being honest, is not great. Like, the shooting aspect is okay, but the combat, especially with the wrench, is really, really janky. Like, you will often swing at something directly in front of you, and it moves just to the side of you, and you completely miss it, and it will just kill you dead. So yeah, you got to be careful when you're swinging at things that you're swinging in the right direction. Otherwise, you will definitely come off second best in that conflict. And it can be quite frustrating when you have to load multiple saves just because you've missed time to swing. And it doesn't have that satisfying crunch when you hit things most of the time. But the rest of the game is pretty damn impressive, and I am enjoying the shit out of it. Yeah, did you guys have any questions about any of that? Is there anything that you'd want me to explain a bit better? What are your thoughts?
No, that was really good. I do not want to play it. It sounds scary.
It's kind of scary.
I think I want to avoid further details because I'm likely to play it.
Yeah, I've been super careful with story spoilers. Like, even in terms of how you use some of the equipment in the game, I can't mention too much because it does spoil elements of the story for you. So, yeah,
good.
It's better that you just experiment and try things. And, as I said, I'm super keen for you to play this jam because I think you will actually get a different experience to me based on just decisions you have to make. So,
yeah. Even with my basic Googling, I know Luke's been pretty good with the spoilers this time.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah. I'm actually at a bit right now where there's about 3 different things
Watch him
I
spoil
could
that
choose.
and spoil it for you now.
No,
I should just...
There's actually about 3 different
right
major decisions I could make at this point, and I'm sure that depending on which way I decide to go, it's going to change the way the game plays out significantly. So I'm yet to make up my mind because it's not something I could just sort of quick save and go back to. It's something that once I commit to something, I will need to commit to it for the duration of the rest of the game. So that will be interesting. But whether you choose the male or female Morgan doesn't actually have any bearing on the game at all. Like, it doesn't change any of the interactions or the gameplay at all. I think the only difference it actually makes is in your starting area, which is actually in your apartment. If you choose the female Morgan, then you have like a purse on your kitchen counter and women's shoes by the door. That's about it. So, yeah. But yeah, anyway, that is my so far report on Prey. I'll no doubt have more stuff to talk about it next week. But trying to edge away from the spoilers, that's about as far as I'm willing to go at this point. So would recommend. Overall thoughts. Very, very big fan of this game so far. If you're planning on playing it...
Sounds like you're enjoying it.
Yeah.
Sounds scary.
I don't know how long it's going to be. I'm probably about 15 hours in so far. So
that's a fair whack of time.
Yeah, but I don't even know if I'm halfway. Like, I think I might not even be. There's a lot of stuff that I can see on my progression and my potential inventory, which I have not found yet. So...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like there's a lot of upgrades. Like, you can upgrade your suit and, you know, your headgear and, you know, your skill tree with the newer mods and all that sort of stuff. I got a lot of blank spaces. So... We'll see. We'll see. There was a dude I saw in the news today who actually managed to speedrun the game in under 20 minutes. So there's that.
I saw that headline.
Oh my goodness.
Which is kind of crazy. Like the way he did it was a combination of using the glue gun to create sort of like methods of traversing up walls and then glitching through ceilings, basically. So he was able to run all around the base and get important items and sort of do it that way. But even so... Under 20 minutes is pretty impressive. And I got to say, like, a fair chunk of that time was actually loading screens between areas, because that's one other downfall for this game. The loading screen time is painful. Yeah, it's at least a minute in most cases, sometimes 2 or 3. I mean, they're loading in fairly large areas, so I can kind of understand why. And they've kind of limited the amount of times you have to do that by the fact that you are going through large areas, so you don't need to sort of go between zones very often. But when you do, it's painful. So, yeah, anyway, there's that. So that is Prey. Check it out. And watch out for those space mugs.
Space mugs.
Space mugs. You can turn into a space mug. It's cool.
Sorry, my voice has 100% packed it in at this point.
Bye, Mimo's voice.
Yeah.
No.
I'm waving at my screen.
All right. Well, anyway, we should wrap this one up anyway and give everyone's chance to rest their voices. So, yeah, if you want to get in touch in the meantime, you can do so through the usual methods. So, mail us at mail@partyloaded.com. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/partyloaded, on Twitter at partyloadedshow. Please check us out on iTunes and leave a review if you've enjoyed the show, because that does help us a great deal getting noticed on that scene. And, of course, you can find our latest content also on YouTube at Channel Endgame on YouTube. So youtube.com/Channel Endgame. Yeah, we'll be back again next week, hopefully with the full crew to talk about some fun stuff, because the month is not over. It is still a fairly active time in video gaming, and heading up to E3 next month, there's a lot of things that are starting to leak, so we've got some pretty cool things to talk about.
E3 will be a big grab at what's coming later in the year and next year, so excited.
They started putting up some of the schedules for the various different publishers for that event now, so...
Man, one day I'll be there.
Well, I mean, if time permits, I would super love for us to organise some sort of, E3 sort of group watching or something. I mean, I don't know how the timeline's going to work out, but even if we're just online and sort of chatting over, team chat or something like on Discord or Mumble, that could be a cool thing to do. So have a night in with E3. That's,
It would be a morning, but sure.
A morning, yeah. Whatever it ends up being. Something like that.
I'd get through the first 2 sessions, then be like, oh my God, just damn time difference.
Yeah. Right, what's everyone got on this week with the gaming? So I'm going to finish up Limbo, which will probably take me all of a couple of hours, and got more Prey to play. What about you two?
Well, I'll probably check out the Hearthstone Brawl and play Matchland. I'm coming up into an assignment and exam again, so...
Fun times.
I don't really get a lot of other stuff in, so small games it is.
Mm-hmm. And Jam, I want to see some amazing photos from you this week. Is that it?
Yeah, but also Persona Progress, which is steadily progressing. But also, for those of you listening, if they're not already sold out, last Friday I went to Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone in concert. WASO, the WA Symphony Orchestra, performed the entire score on stage while the movie was playing on screen behind it. I know they do this for movies worldwide, so check your regional orchestra, because, oh my God, it is phenomenal. I saw Lord of the Rings Return of the King last year. It's just, the experience, there are no words.
When do they leave Perth?
Well, no, this is WA Symphony Orchestra doing it. So once they've completed the Philosopher's Stone, which they did last weekend, tickets go on sale publicly tomorrow for the next movie, which is happening in November.
Oh, cool.
I've already purchased mine because we got pre-sale option because we saw the first movie, and oh my God, it's so worth it. Go see it, or wherever you are in the world, find out if, your regional orchestra does this sort of thing, because it's becoming a very popular thing and it's so worth it if you enjoy these movies. I mean, the crowd was so into it. It's movie 1. They're all 11 years old and they're like wolf whistling at Neville and and booing all of the bad guys, and then like mix of emotions when Alan Rickman came on screen. It was just amazing how into it everyone got, and the conductor was encouraging it wholeheartedly and used his little conductor stick as a wand. It was great. It was so great.
Well, I think the next sort of symphony type event like that I might get to go to is one that Christian actually drew my attention to during the week, which is the Legend of Zelda Symphony Orchestra, which is coming to Australia. They haven't actually been to Oz since 2013, and when they came then, they only came to Sydney, but they're actually going to be coming next year to Perth. So,
wow.
Yeah, we're probably going to check that one out.
Perth.
Tickets go on sale. I think actually they might even already be on sale. I think this week they would have gone up. So, yes. So if you happen to love A Legend of Zelda and, don't mind being in Perth for that could be something. That could be a thing. So there you go.
And next week we'll hear about Hans Zimmer from Ollie.
Yes.
We're already getting updates.
Or we will forbid him out of jealousy from discussing such matters. Anywho.
Well, both Jam and I gave up the opportunity to go this evening, so...
I know.
Sacrifices that some of us make. Anyway.
Yeah.
Right. Well, let's not force you all to sacrifice any more sleep, so we'll wrap off for now, and we will be back next week to discuss more fun and games. And until then, have a good one, and ta-ta.
Bye, friends.
Bye.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.